Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Krawler deck profile. So I'm really excited for you guys because this deck was actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Izzy. And this deck is an absolutely crazy powerful deck now that we finally have Krawler Soma, giving us a way to special summon monsters from the deck and swarm the board. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like in your name description every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron. And definitely give Izzy some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Krawler Soma. This card is absolutely insane in this deck, and a really powerful new addition to this build. It has the ability you can target a face-up monster that you control, special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, change the targeted monster into face-down defense position. But it cannot change its battle position for the rest of the turn. That is not that big of a deal because you're basically flipping a flip effect monster back face down so that you can use its effect again, or normal summoning out a Krawler monster if you're going first, flipping it face down and special summoning this card to your field. Now that's not where this effect ends, because this card absolutely is a crazy powerful card. That it has the ability also that during your main phase, you can reduce this card's level by 2 or 4, and if you do, you can special summon Krawler monsters with different names from your hand deck or graveyard whose total levels equal the amount reduced in this face-up card, in face-up or face-down defense position. That's a really powerful effect just to get you 2 additional Krawler level 2 monsters on your side of the field so you can link summon, XZ summon, or go into some really awesome plays. So this card is a definite 3-up, and you guys will definitely see how powerful this card is during the test hands for this deck. I then played 2 copies of Deus Ex Krawler. This card is a crazy powerful one-sided skill drain that has the ability that when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets this face-down monster, quick effect, you can change this card into face-up defense position. It also has the ability that you negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. And after this card is flipped face up, while it is in the monster zone, you get to negate all monster effects activated on the opponent's field, basically making this card a one-sided skill drain. We then play 2 copies of Krawler Spine. Krawler Spine is a really good card and reminds me a lot of the original Maneater Bug. Now they all have unique flip effects, but all of your Krawler monsters that are level 2 share a really awesome common effect. That if this face-up card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can special summon 2 Krawler monsters with different names from your deck in face-down defense position, except another copy of themselves. And you can only use each effect of each Krawler monster once per turn. Now, all of your level 2 Krawler monsters share that ability. Now, this card's unique ability is just like the OG Maneater Bug. When you flip this card face up, you can target a monster on the field and destroy it, which is a really cool effect. And then play 2 copies of Krawler Receptor. Now, this is a card I actually considered playing as a 3-of over a copy of Upstart Goblin, so you can play this card as a 3-of in this build. But this card's unique ability is when it's flipped face up, you get to add a Krawler monster from your deck to your hand. And then play 2 copies of Krawler Gila. Gila is a good 2-of in the deck that has the ability that when it's flipped face up, you can special summon a Krawler monster from your hand or grave in face-up attack or face-down defense position, except another copy of this card. And then play 2 copies of Krawler Axion. Axion is a good card as well in the deck that has the ability that when it's flipped face up, you can target a spell or trapper on the field and destroy it. And then play a single copy of Ravener. Ravener is a good 1-of in the deck. You don't really need more than 1 of this card. It has the ability when it's flipped face up, you can target up to 2 Krawler monsters in your graveyard and add them back to your hand, which is a really good effect to go into the grind game because you can actually grab back cards like your copy of Soma. I then play 3 copies of Girsu, the Orcust Mech Knight. This card is a great normal summon in the deck and one of your key starters in the deck as well, because if this card is normal or special summon, you can send an Orcust, or the card that we're going to be sending, a World Legacy card from your deck to the graveyard. Then, if there are 2 more cards in this card's column, then this card is treated as a tuner this turn, and if you control no other monsters, you can special summon a World Legacy token that's a Machine, Dark, level 1, 0 attack, and 0 defense to both players' fields and defense position, which helps us make a Link 2 monster called Lib the World Keyblade Master, which is a really cool effect to be able to just immediately get us a token and let us make a Link 2 while also being a Foolish Burial in this deck. It's also really cool because we play Avermax in the deck, which makes it so that we actually are playing Girsu, Lib, and our copy of Avermax, giving us all 3 of the original heroes from the World Legacy storyline. I'm then playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom to round out the monsters. This card is just a great hand trap to stop the opponent from going into the deck and giving themselves searches. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, I'm going to be playing a single copy of Upstart Goblin. You can change this card out as a copy of Receptor, which will give us an additional search from the deck, but this card is just really good to make it a 39 card deck. I then play a single copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is a good way to stop your opponent's hand traps while you're going into the deck for all of our plays. I then play 3 copies of World Legacy Survivor. World Legacy Survivor is a really good card that lets us excavate the top 5 cards of our deck, and if you do, you get to add one of the excavated Krawler monsters or a World Legacy card to your hand from among those 5 cards. You send the rest to the graveyard. Otherwise, if you can't add a card, you shuffle them all back in the deck, and also it has the ability you cannot special summon monsters from the extract except link monsters, which is not that big of a deal because we're pretty much only playing link monsters in the extract except for a Zeus package. We then play 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. Foolish Burial Goods is so we can get our Mind Meld into the graveyard as quickly as possible so we can go in for our copy of Lib. I then play 3 copies of Scapegoat. Scapegoat is a really good swarm card in this deck because if you end on a copy of Deuce X Krawler and a copy of Lib, you can then flip this during your opponent's end phase and make a Link 4 during your turn, which is really good because they're all Earth monsters, which can let us step into some really powerful Link monsters in the extra deck. So that's it for the spell cards, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're just going to be playing a few traps, and we're going to be playing 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, which is just a really good card overall to stop your opponent's monster effects, and it's a really powerful hand trap as well. If you set this card to your side of the field, you can also lock spell and trap card columns, which is absolutely insane. We play 3 copies of World Legacy Mind Meld, which is one of the most insane cards in the entire deck. It has the ability to, when an opponent's monster activates its effect, while you control a Krawler monster, the activated effect becomes return 1 face-up monster to your opponent controls to the hand. Basically, being a negate that changes your opponent's monster effect to bounce a Krawler back to your hand, then your Krawler monster will go off and let you special summon out 2 more Krawlers from the deck with different names, which is absolutely insane. This card also has a Banished from Graveyard effect that you can banish this card from your graveyard, target a Link monster on the field, and you can special summon a Krawler monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard to a zone that that monster points to in face down defense position. And you can only use 1 effect of this card once per turn. This card is absolutely insane to be able to send with your copy of Girsu, get the token, link into Ibli or your copy of Lib, and then you are able to set your copy of World Legacy Pawn on the field, banish this card from the graveyard, and then set your copy of Deuce X Krawler, which is really insane to be able to put that copy of Skill Drain on your side of the field, while also having World Legacy Pawn to be able to flip it face up during the opponent's turn, because World Legacy Pawn can actually flip your monsters when it's activated, so you can target a face down monster that you control and change it to face up attack or defense position, which you're always going to put it in defense position because it has 3,000 defense points. The card also has a really good effect that you can shuffle a Krawler monster from your graveyard into the main deck and then target 1 face up monster that you control and change it to face down defense, being able to reuse your flip effect, which is really, really good. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're just playing basically a bunch of really good Link monsters, so let's get straight on into those. We're going to be playing a single copy of X Krawler Quarliarch. I feel like you only need a single copy of this card now. It's just a really good one-of that can get you an OTK, which is really nice, because depending on the amount of Krawler monsters that you have on the field, depends on the effects that it gets. If you have 2 Krawler monsters on the field, all monsters you control gain 300 attack and defense. If you have 4, then your opponent cannot activate cards during the battle phase. And if you have 6 Krawler monsters on the field, your monsters can attack directly, which is a pretty good effect. If you can swarm the field with 6 Krawler monsters, you're probably gonna win. I then play a single copy of Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax, which is a really awesome boss monster to put on the field, especially if you make it with your copy of Scapegoat, linking into a copy of Lib and your copy of IP Masquerena. To be able to make this card makes it so it can't be destroyed by card effects, your opponent can't target it, and when they attack it with a special summon monster, it has the ability it's going to gain the attack of that special summon monster, and if they do in fact get rid of this card, it non-targeting shuffles a card from their field back in the deck. So whatever that you get rid of it with, it's going to shuffle it back into the deck, which is already an insane effect. And then play a single copy of Appaloosa, because it's just a great monster negate in the deck if you want to make this card with your copy of Scapegoat. 1 copy of Access Code Talker, because it gives us additional pops in the deck, which is a really good effect in this deck. You can play Boral Sword if you want to play it for a more budget option, but this card is just really good overall. 1 copy of Unicorn to spin stuff. Phoenix to pop spells and traps, 1 copy of Subterra Behemoth Fiendess. This card is just really good for any flip effect deck, and it's just a really powerful card overall that has the ability that gains attack equal and combined original levels of all the Subterra monsters used with this card's Link Summon times 100, which you're never going to get that effect, but the really good effect is during your main phase, you can send a flip monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, you special summon a monster from your hand in face down defense position to a zone that this card points to. And you only see effect this card once per turn, and then also once per turn, if a monster this card points to is flip face up, you can add a flip monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, essentially getting you additional monsters just for flipping your monsters face up. We then play 2 copies of Lib, the World Key Blade Master. This card is a really good 2 of. I did consider playing this card as a 3 of, but I felt like 2 was totally fine. But this card has the ability to take any 2 monsters to link summon this card, and you can only be link summoned when you have a World Legacy card in the graveyard. So you're only ever summoning this card if you normal summon out Girsu as your first play to send your copy of Mind Meld to the grave, get the token, and then immediately make this card. But this card has the ability that during the main phase, you can set a World Legacy spell trap directly from your deck, but it can't be activated unless you have a copy of World Legacy monster in the graveyard the turn you set it. But you can activate it the following turn. Since we're setting traps, it's not that big of a deal. But it also has the ability, if this link summon card is sent to the graveyard as a link material, you can shovel 1 card on the field into the deck and it does not target. Play a single copy of IP Masquerade so we can actually go near a copy of Abramax and give it a really good protection. 1 copy of Link Rebo to make with the Scapegoat tokens, 1 copy of Link Spider to make with the Scapegoat tokens, and then a Zeus package in the form of Sky Cavalry, Downer Magician, and a copy of Zeus just in case we need to make it to out some really powerful monsters. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really crazy deck. What's really nice about this deck is it's actually relatively cheap to pick up because all of the Krawler monsters are pretty much commons for this deck, and you can change out cards like Access Code Talker for some other budget options like Boral Sword or even Borreload if you want to change it out for Borreload. That is another option for you guys. And you can change out Ash Blossoms as well in the deck for copies of Effect Veiler, which is another option for you guys. So that's it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.